Void? More like void, because it has a U in it. What's going on, everybody? By everybody, I mean me and you. That's how this whole thing works, after all. There would be no me without you, and there would be no you without me. How are you, Don? Just working on my full toilet submission this time around. There is still time, should you feel like you want to participate. I know times have probably been tough for you, but what better way to take the mind off of such problems than to fill a toilet, proverbially speaking? Otherwise, I hope you've been well. You have been missed around these parts. Well, thanks for dropping by, man. Good to see you. Alive and functional. Perfect. Before we start, we should take a moment to appreciate Mike. He's got his Christmas hat on. He's feeling festive. I don't know what for. It's not fucking Christmas. But, you know, you don't really ask questions to the skeleton. He's hanging there on my desk. He's having a good time. Icor has just battled with Lard and come out victorious after many, many fucking defeats and confusion. Oh, never mind. That's funny. Icor is trying to get a unit. He's like having some random crash when he's just moving a unit around, and he's trying to figure out what's causing it. And as far as we can tell, there's like no real reason it should crash, as usual. We don't have proper debug tools, so we can't really figure it out. But it's okay. He'll battle with that for a while. We thought for a second it was because the shadow used by the unit has a linked shield overlay, which was not something that either of us set up. It's actually a default Blizzard thing. But because the unit doesn't have a shield, it never crashes the game. However, apparently it was still crashing without that, or with that fixed. So, poor guy. Oh yeah, let me write in the stream schedule for this week, and then we'll get started. I do have an announcement to make, but I'll do that after I'm done with this. So... Today's the 9th? Yeah. Alright. Good luck. Have a good time. Other pleasantries. Mwah, kisses, smoochy. Hope you have an excellent day. See you back later. Probably another day, because I'll be at work myself after my stream. Thanks. So yeah, my announcement that I teased earlier is actually just that Fraud Night for this coming week has to be moved around to some other day. I don't know when yet. I have a feeling maybe we might just have to skip a week, but we'll see what happens. I'm just not going to be around. Like, obviously people can still come and hang, but I'm not going to be around to stream. So... all right. So where are we with this stuff? Let's go ahead and pop open our stuff here. Okay. So I think this AI was completely done, and we were just having a lot of difficulty getting the map started, or the mod started. I figured out it was actually due to some patches that I had put in from Undead Star that were meant to prevent the AI, or prevent the, rather the, basically there's this bug with Firegraft where any Firegraft EXE you make, you won't be able to run the vanilla campaigns. They just won't start. The Brood War campaigns start, but the vanilla ones don't. So, Undead Star has a patch that fixes it that I added to Framework, or a set of patches, but those patches break loading files from plugins. So basically I just have to comment that out anytime I want to use A's or MTL. As a result, it's pretty much useless, because every production is going to use A's or MTL. So we won't be able to make use of those patches, but presumably if you are going to be using the default campaign selection screen, you're probably using the Brood War one, so hopefully it's not that big of a deal. If it is, we'll have to have somebody, probably iQuare, or maybe myself in the future, investigate why it would be interfering, but seems like a lower level issue. What's up, Veek? Oh yeah, I forgot to do remove Hello World. Did I forget to remove all the units? Yeah, I did. Pranked. Alright, well, we'll remove Hello World anyway. See what happens. So yeah, all of the rebuilding that I did was basically for no fucking reason. Because all I needed to do was find those patches and initialize and fix them. Although I think I still came out ahead because I still patched in some extra shit from the Harvest CPP file, so... if I go to my tools, GPTP 2019, presumably I can just grab the Harvest hook in here. Because this wasn't here before, so... presumably that's important. If Scarlet is still in the stream after being ejected from everything associated with me, then they've got bigger problems than trying to communicate with me and failing. So I'm not worried about that. Oh wait, it is in here. So what's missing from here actually? Like if we take this. Besides stuff being tabbed out a little bit differently. Oh, an asterisk is in a different place. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't see any immediate differences. So I'll just assume that we actually have the updated one. Let me go to definitions. Oh, I probably copied it into this, I guess. So this would be... Well, I've made AIs before text tree changes, but that's mostly because my proposed text tree changes, I may or may not get to them, and they are also fairly small in terms of scope. So, really it depends on what you're actually going to be doing. Oh. I don't know what happened here, but that's okay. Build this file. Oh yeah, we have to go into initialize. Aha. Just another person that is completely incapable of taking social cues. Every single message they sent was infuriating. And maybe it's a personality conflict, but I'm calling the shots here, so I'm not willing to deal with that shit. Also, like, most of it was just weird, more so than infuriating, but wholly off-topic and useless messages that were completely contradictory to anything trying... Like, they weren't conducive to being productive, I'll put it to you that way. Unfortunately, I think the way YouTube works is that you probably can't even see the messages that I'm talking about in question if you go back to those VODs, but it's not really that important. This individual is not likely to do anything worthwhile, similar to Razorback, actually, so no reason to keep him around. Alright, let's try this. Oops. Pranked. Alright, so that should have fixed that. Yep. Okay. So you're, when you said you completed 2 AIs, that means you actually got them mostly done then? Like they're tested and all that? Or did you just mean that you wrote the basis for them and you'll debug them later? Either way, pretty good progress, right? I think you'll find that the more that you do mod streams, the more productive you'll actually end up being. So, ends up being pretty good. In my experience. Okay, I think we've cleared them all. I just need to do this. And there one. What's up, Molly? Yeah, I'm, this is a plugin environment made in C++ for Brood War. Oh. I feel like I've seen that before. But honestly not sure why. Epic question mark? What the fuck is going on over here, man? Also, they don't have the cheat active for some... Oh, I probably don't have the hook enabled. Wait, do they? Oh, maybe they do. Yeah, they do. Mental math. How are you, Melody? It's been a while. I saw you typing in the server a little while ago, but I don't think I was around to participate in that particular conversation. So we have an AI here that seems very hell-bent on doing its thing early on, but... let's find the... there we go. Oh, okay. There just needs to be a delay on it. I thought I was going to start them off with more resources than I ended up starting them off. So I thought they were just going to immediately go for it, but not so. Right, yeah. No, that's true, though. Like, there's a lot of stuff that seems like it might be a problem or might not be a problem, and then you get into the point where you're actually dealing with them, and why does Zerg AI do this with their overlords? What the fuck is wrong with these people? Unfortunately, they're only sending one guard. I should probably raise the priority for those containments. Because at this point, the... well, actually, I don't think if I contain is called again, right? Yeah, it's a one-time thing. So we can do this then. Wait, should we do one refinery or maybe one bunker? One bunker at home first. I think that makes sense. And here it says the only... oh, no, they probably were just being delayed or something, like silly people. But the other thing, though, is that they're very slow on bringing the guards down. So I think if we do, like, absurdly high request priority for these things, we might get somewhere. But again, this is very experimental. I think this is the first time I've ever tried to do a bunker contain. So... I was actually looking for the guards. Yeah, what do I do? But yeah, when you test your map and see your AIs like as an opponent or an ally, that'll help you understand a bit more about what is missing from them, I think. They definitely should not be building depots. What the fuck? Yeah, let me just throw a depot down here. It's fine. Alright. You actually, Alexander? Oh, cool. Hope you're enjoying your week of... I mean, it sounds like you're enjoying your week off, but... hope it's as great as it as it's chalked up to be. Yeah, the ASC3 is essentially procedural. Obviously, you can... what I'm doing is multi-threading a bunch of stuff. So I'm giving it a set of procedural instructions. Well, I guess multiple sets of procedural instructions. But, oh, here's a good test. We'll see if this worked out. They picked one of the 3 available locations because powers of 3. And we'll see what happens. But yes, ASE3 is... well, Brood War AI in general is like that. Off it goes. Dun 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 dun. A grand fucking journey. Check me out. I'm going to request 1 SCV and have my men spin trying to get to me. Alright, well, it lands properly. That's cool. And it does have 1 SCV assigned to it, but it's back here. So we still have to figure out why they don't build. But, that's pretty cool that it just went off like that without a hitch. Not exactly my first time using that command, but might as well be. It's such a niche command. You almost never use it, so it's good to see it actually work. Alright, so we also know that they're getting hung up in their main, which means I probably made some very sleepy mistake when writing this. Though I did notice they never get a refinery either, probably because I never requested one. These are still using old ideas of priorities, so who knows what we're missing here, but just minimize that for now. Might need that later. Oh. Well, we were using an older system for this, I guess. But that was just because I was trying to figure out what was going wrong. So in this case, we'll just use this. And then... Oops. I'm glad I made it so that anytime Microsoft Edge starts up, it immediately kills itself. It was a good time investment figuring that out. Alright, close. Open this. There we go. Oops. Still getting used to this keyboard even though I've had it for months, or a month. Not exactly a proper excuse, but you know. Do we have this cursor in here? It doesn't look like it. Twilight tileset is just free because I was working with some stuff for iQuery yesterday, and I wanted to actually have a proper tileset. Gotta make sure we have the right GRPs in here, otherwise we'll get some... I don't think we'll actually... Oh, no. I don't think this plugin has ISDebug in it, so I should probably add that, but... Should not be a problem for now. We'll throw it in there anyway, because we're manly men. Easy, dude. Yeah, you can just post those in Newbor or something. Or I guess, I don't know, there's probably not a great place for C++ code, but if people are trying to use it for game design, I suppose that's a fine enough place. I'm actually going to be studying up programming myself pretty soon in March, because I'm tired of... Like, it's a two-fold issue. iQuare is like he says that he's not that great of a programmer or whatever. He doesn't like to toot his own horn. Regardless of the caliber of his code, he's able to do some stuff that is actually revolutionary in terms of what the result is. So I'm not in a position where I can speak to the quality of his code, because I don't know what good or bad code looks like, generally speaking. If you gave me enough time to look at the code and study up what else could be done, I could probably give you an answer, but I don't know offhand. That being said, he's still like a linchpin in terms of what needs to happen for my projects. And as much as I appreciate that, I also don't want to rely on him, nor do I want to saddle him with all my work. So he has been reliable, and that's been awesome, but he also wants to do his own work. And so I would rather like figure out some way to do some of that work myself so that I can offload some of that burden. And I'm sure he'll still participate in the coding side of things, but at the very least, I'd like to be able to be more useful than I currently am in that department. And it's not looking great as it stands. So I wonder if the reason why there's nothing going on in the main... Well, actually, I have no idea why nothing would be going on in the main, so it's hard for me to say, but... Let's just throw this update in there. That should fix some things. Oh, we should also take a look at the island. Now, EXP Island set piece. So that's the ID. Right, I remember how this worked. Well, I remember how this worked in theory, but I'm not actually sure if this thread was created. So we'll do like print EXP Island. Print EXP Island. Command center. Just so that we have some more information about what's going on. If we don't see either of those print messages, even though in theory we're getting the command center to land, then we know something fishy is happening. All right. So let's take a look. So indeed we have 6 SCV requests. And then nothing else. Obviously they naturally build depots. But as soon as they get weight build 6 SCV, they should immediately start working on second barracks request. And as soon as they finish building the SCV, like that's when they start building the SCV. When they finish it, they should get a 7th SCV request. So something is up. There's nothing that would like intercept it at a lower level, so okay. The fact that it doesn't show up in the request log at all is what's confusing me. So then you also go in here. Bring jump is more universal in what context? I feel like I missed a message or something. Wait build start, it doesn't work in that for, yeah, if you, I need wait build start. I mean, it works fine in the latest build of A's. Well, it's supposed to work fine in the latest build of A's. But alright, so we should get at least one debug message out of this. Waiting for 6 SCVs. Okay. It's just not executing the code. Like we know it's executing this script because it has this print command. And we know it's player 7, computer, yeah, like, what? Well, I'll put this in for debugging. I'm not removing build 6 SCV, so... But even if I remove the request, it wouldn't remove the fact that the unit has that many. Or the town has that many, rather. Hold on. I'm going to close these real quick. Yeah, FT for full toilet. Although I keep looking at it and thinking it's Mapcraft, so. Yeah, so it works fine with what is it works fine with build or bring jump. But there's not really any justification for why, like, there's no other town that has access to this stuff. Why would that be the case? Like, I don't see any reason for that to be the case. And now, of course, we're stuck at this because wait build doesn't work. I've never seen this behavior before. Like, I used to see this back when wait build was bugged and didn't see workers properly. What do you mean? It breaks in the thread that has that exact thing. Like, it seems to be working for buildings, but not for units. So I guess it's just a regression of the plugin. Actually, hold on one second. Because this might have been me trying to figure out what was happening, and I may have added an older version of A's. I don't actually use any of the latest features, so I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I'm just going to test that real quick. Because that might be the problem. It might be that iQuery's fixes were not actually added to that version or something. So. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I mean, it'll be pretty easy to see. All we have to do is take a look at the SEV count. Yeah, no, it's still broken. That's very strange. Oh, well, it wasn't a complete wasted day. Is the iScript the fix? I'll get rid of my prints so that we don't clog this stuff up. That would explain a lot of strange behavior that I was observing in general. Oh. I didn't add any new hooks, so I don't know what that exactly means. Unless you're talking about the new A's hooks. That's what I would expect, but at the same time, it seems very unlikely that, you know, shit just breaks like that. I don't know. Maybe it's more likely than I think. It's just, definitely, like, every single time I think about this, too, I think I said it like 3 or 4 different times yesterday about how A's has turned into a Frankenstein monster. It feels like that's the case. Shit's just breaking for seemingly no reason. But we'll have some debug messages shortly that will help us figure out if that's actually true or not. Oh, I should definitely seal that off. Pranked. Even that does not seal it. I'll have to make a tile blend of that at some point. Maybe a Zergling could still fit through the top there. Definitely bizarre stuff, but that's all right. I still think we're on the right track as far as this AI is concerned, despite this issue. I assume you haven't noticed this behavior in the experimental non-Hydraze build, Veek, the wait build start stuff. Although maybe you use bring jump instead. One of the main problems besides wait build, or like obviously bring jump is more annoying to type a lot because of the fact that it's so long. But the lack of determinism or precision with stuff like wait build start. Like wait build start has utility. And yeah, so I would like to keep that if possible, but unfortunately suppose we'll see on that front. Moment of silence for my mother's nose. We could probably throw a bunch of rocky snow down in that area. Be a nice rocky area to look at, and also prevent people from spamming defenses over there. Wait, you can only use those tiles? What do you mean? Crushed rock and flagstones. Oh, because we don't have any other Protoss tiles, I guess. You could port Temple. I could port Temple for you as far as the cliffs go, if you wanted a variety of cliffs. And the space platform dirt cliffs. I could do those at some point. Well, if you didn't want to do like asteroid-based style things like I did in my stuff. Sounds like my dog is having a lot of fun out there. spinning, as usual. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Oh, I didn't combine these, I guess. I still don't quite understand why Blizzard did their tiles that way, but, you know. Who am I to judge? Well, I'm not going to do the masking for that now. That's a nightmare job, but at least it's prepped for later. Todd-born type of game. Well, obviously it can be just straight up macro, but the micro component is optional. I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you know, you got hero-based gameplay. I mean, it's very much designed to be like a MOBA, so it's like MOBA in a macro environment. MOBA from a control standpoint, like the mechanics of how you interact with the game, but not so much from a standpoint of like you're not just killing mindless creeps as much, I guess. So there's that. As far as developing a map's aesthetics go, well, you want your map to have some feature to it that originality or uniqueness isn't necessarily like a big deal. I would say quality is more unique anyway, in general. But you do want something in your map that draws enough attention to be a conscious thought on behalf of the player, generally speaking. Maybe conscious is the wrong word, because you do also want your terrain and your layout to sink into the subconscious and tell a subtle visual story. But you've got a list of tools, which are your terrain types and the ways that they blend, and your doodads, and obviously your custom tiles. And those are your tools for the trade, and you have to use those tools in order to get set up with some sort of functioning level design, and to also just to get set up properly with regards to like what's the term? Like you also want you don't just want a functioning environment, you also want a good looking one. So you've got to figure out what your environment should look like. What kind of visual story should it tell? Is it an ice planet? Is it a jungle planet? Etc. And then what happens on this planet when nobody's around? Like, I firmly believe in the modular approach to designing a mission's aesthetic, where obviously you're designing a functional level, but you're kind of considering it like a gray box type environment. That's a term that they use in Counter-Strike mapping, where basically you've got almost no textures, almost no visual details. You're blocking out the physical attributes of the map as far as the gameplay is concerned. And this approach demonstrates that you give a shit about the gameplay more than you give a shit about aesthetics, right? You care more about gameplay in that sense, which is what you should be doing if you're making a game, obviously. So then once you get your fundamental level design done, you can start working in aesthetics and textures and stuff like that in the gray box context. So in this context, I've got this gray box, which is like the undetailed map, where you just have the cliffs and some basic ideas. Like this grass up here is going to be replaced with high moguls at some point. But this is like the proper tile type. It's the proper height, so that's what I can use. Stuff like that. I've got blocks where there should be a reverse ramp and stuff like that, or obviously all of the whole river is like that. It's just like, this is a functional version of the level, but it's not the final version, and it doesn't have all the textures and doesn't have all the art to it. So I've made my gray box, and especially up here is like very gray boxy, very undetailed, right? Still need a lot of detail over there. I've started to scatter in some aesthetic elements like these trees and the rocks and stuff. And the more time that I put into those, the better generally they will look. But that's mostly like my way of saying, this is kind of the aesthetic I'm going for. This is kind of the way that I'm trying to charge ahead as far as the aesthetic is concerned. So I use the opportunity of not having that much, of basically looking at a blank canvas, like a gray box, and saying like, all right, here's my level, but it needs more art before it can be considered like ready to go, ready to be played, ready to be looked at least. It is ready to be played, but it's not ready to be looked at. So in the initial standpoint, this is where the modular design comes in. I try to conceive of what this environment was like before whatever conflict is taking place in the level started to happen. And so I build my environment of natural and unnatural man-made objects, and I create, like, here's a river, and, you know, it's got bridges in it. So obviously the bridges weren't there. They were added after the river was already made. Like, it's a very easy example. But then, like, this position was here. And then if I wanted to tell a more distinct visual story, I would have certain areas be more bombed out or buried in snow or some other visual storytelling of, like, corpses and other such doodads that would show, like, that would kind of tell a story based on their presence. And that's one way of doing it. That's one way of handling it. So you start out at the base layer of just the level as far as it's functional. Then you start to sprinkle in some doodads while figuring out, and some detail in general, while figuring out what your starting point is. And then after you make your starting point, like, this is what it was when nobody was around, you start to add in details of, and this is what happened more recently. Like, this is a bombed out area that was the result of a recent, like, the battle that is taking place when the player plays. The events in the very, very recent history led up to this happening. So you start to build set pieces, visual set pieces that work on a context of, this was how the area is normally, or this is how the area was, you know, for hundreds of years, or even just a couple years if it's like a colony or something. And then this is what the area has turned into as a result of recent activity. And that could even be like natural, quote unquote, activity, like a volcano, or, you know, something more environmental than an actual combat, like, you know, again, buried in snow in this context. It could be like a snowstorm rolled through, and so you see the, you know, a bunch of buried doodads. That's like an easy way to tell that story. Now, most people don't really place them in ways that make sense. Like, I try to have my man-made doodads surrounding man-made objects so that they're not just in the middle of nowhere. Or if they are in the middle of nowhere, it's like a stark contrast, where, like, everything else is natural, and then there was like this one outpost over here, and now it's abandoned. You know, that can also be a good storytelling tool. So the modular approach, I think, makes a lot of sense, because it forces you to think, like, you try to run through your head the story of the area. You know, before people moved in here and started setting up outpost terrain and ramps and stuff, you know, this area just happened to be a resource-rich location on an ice planet. And so I make the natural landscape, and I mark out where I think I'm going to place the man-made stuff. But I'm still thinking, like, does it make sense to place man-made stuff here in the context of the overall mission? And it's sort of like a catch-22 in some senses, because when you're placing, say, like, you place, for example, let me find a good example. So when you're placing man-made or natural objects, for example, this ramp is actually pretty useful for defending this mineral-only base, right? And so if this was a man-made object, maybe it would make more... It would reinforce the idea that whoever was behind making this man-made stuff was competent, because they observed the strategic importance of this area and ordered this to be built. And so that was why that was, like, the reason for building that. You know, in this case, we're sort of doing that by, like, reinforcing the importance of protecting these resources, so we build around that, in theory. And, like, the same deal for over here. It's like this was built around the resources. And so, you know, you kind of get that situation where, in a way, you're using the story to justify gameplay features, but it can tie in well. It can just be this thing that happens. Like, it can just be something where you think, oh, well, it makes sense for somebody to build this outpost here, or to build this thing here, right? And, you know, it makes sense because this is actually a useful area. So it goes beyond, like, just putting some doodads down, and you start to think of, like, what would actually be useful in the context of a battlefield or a resource mining operation. You know, this will provide cover from both natural events like snow onto the workers over here, snowstorm or whatever. It'll also provide... protect, you know, some cover against enemy troop action, right? Enemy action in the area. So there's a couple of different ways. Like, you can basically look at any given situation and think, well, what justifies this, and what is an argument against it? Arguments for and against a certain placement. So I'm not at the level of level design prowess where I can successfully, in my opinion, argue for every single thing that I do, but you should at least have some answer if somebody asks you, like, hey, why did you do this? You know, you should be able to provide a somewhat compelling answer, I think. And generally speaking, I'm okay at doing that. So hopefully that answered your question. Well, it depends on what story the doodads are meant to tell, and also what function they're meant to serve in terms of gameplay. Like, I find that it actually doesn't look as repetitive as you might initially think to have, like, example like this. Like, for me, this doesn't actually bother me. Even though it's two of the same doodad, the proximity of another doodad sort of offsets that, and once I'm done adding a couple more visual details to the area, it will even further juxtapose that in a sense. And so, to me, it's like, you can even use a lot of the same doodad, or a small number of the same doodad, at least, in a lot of situations, in close proximity, without sacrificing immersion, right? Because that can snap you out of the immersion if something like that happens. So, like, the same thing is happening over here, where this doodad is in close proximity to two other doodads, even though another copy of the same doodad is over here. Like, you almost don't even notice that until I point it out. And even once you see it, it doesn't really bother you that much on a visceral level. At least this is how it works for me. Is like, even though I know that those are the two of the same doodad, I see a scene as opposed to just a single doodad. And so I'm thinking, well, that's okay, you know. I generally like to keep things that make sense in the same biome or in the same environment together, which is why I was talking about keeping man-made doodads near man-made tiles, and, you know, scattering rocks and such things around natural cliffs. I did this to an exhaustive degree in Toddborn's missions, which I feel like, you know, while it's a sort of novelty in a sense where I haven't seen anybody else do that particular blend in the ice tile set, I don't think that it justifies, you know, doing it everywhere. And so that's an area where, like, I probably could have pulled back a little bit on that. But at the same time, it's, you know, it's an opportunity to experiment, which I think is always a good idea to take if you have the opportunity. So. I'm looking for a specific tile. Yeah, it comes down to usage, like how you're putting them together in general. Same is true for duplicate tiles of the same tile type or whatever. You gotta remember that all of these are unbuildable tiles too, so they have a balance implication. I could change that, but I actually want them to be unbuildable, so... It's a difficult balance to strike in that sense. Yeah, no kidding. It will definitely be pretty nice in that sense. That's one of the things I'm most excited for with regards to that tool. Not having to specify as much. In what way do you mean? As in it takes long to make something that's good, or things that are... like, I'm not sure what the broader point is. Forgot this tile even existed. Well, the problem is nothing in Starcraft is pretty much like pretty much nothing is optimal in terms of like the workflow. There's a lot of stuff that you could in theory improve upon. Like even the stuff I'm doing right now could be done in such a way where you can visualize the doodads that you're trying to work with or something. Like you can actually have some sort of visualization of them in theory. And it wouldn't really be that big of a deal to assemble either. Like, you could do that without that much issue. But we don't have that luxury, so we don't have the ability to do that. So that's a big one right there. Not being able to just do, like, place tiles in a way that makes sense, you know what I mean? On a visceral level. So I have to instead, like, cycle through the various possibilities, I guess, is a way of describing the phenomenon. Well, you could have, like, a whole... Like, I could use this in theory, but I have to manually fix it in my head as far as, like, what tile does what. You know what I mean? And so, instead, like, being able to... like, maybe tap this, and then right-click it with my reticle over it, and then immediately having a context menu or something that would pop out and list all of the other various tiles that would fit there. Like, that could be helpful in that sense. There's different things that you could do on a software side to delimit that where possible. And it's just so frustrating in many respects. You know? I mean, it's not really frustrating per se, I guess. It's just like, it's one of those things where if you did have the ability to use what I'm talking about, if you could bridge the gap in many respects, it would be phenomenal. And you'd be like, wow, I can't believe I didn't have this for so long. Like, that's sort of what I'm getting at. But despite that, even if you did know everything inside and out and have really high quality tools, it wouldn't matter. Like you're saying, you still need to put time and effort into something for it to be good. Like, I don't contest that point. That is for sure. But that being said, I mean, even the act of going through and updating your process in this way, where you're considering, like, what could I be doing faster as opposed to better? Like, in a sense, faster is better. Being able to make something at a high level of being able to make high quality content, like that, if you maintained the quality of your work but did it faster, that would be an improvement. And being able, that's what I was talking about, or one of the points that maybe I didn't labor enough in my process over product by design video. Like, for my money, that is an important thing to do, to practice, to attempt to make good on. It's the idea that you can, not necessarily, like, I'm not saying you should stagnate and not improve and only make the same quality content, but there is something to be said about improving your ability to make content by focusing on making the same quality, like not sacrificing quality, right? Conceptualizing it that way. I'm not going to sacrifice my quality, but I am going to try to make this happen in this time frame. Stuff like that can be useful. And most of the time people write off, like, the association you make with something that's supposed to be quick and easy. Most of the time, if there's a product that's like rushed like that or has that air about it, where it's like, yeah, it seems like this needed more time in the oven. Like, obviously, there's a whole bunch of bad mental associations that you make with those. So I don't blame people for having a knee-jerk response, being like, no, I don't want to rush my content. But I'm not saying rush it. I'm just saying commit to a time frame and see if you can meet that challenge. Like that can be a good challenge to improve your skills in that sense. Kind of bridge the gap over here, in a sense. Leave a nice little trail. Imagine making this song. All right, pretty happy with how that turned out over there. Yeah, I think once you get accustomed to spending like 4 hours daily on the same map for like a week or so, you won't have that problem as much. All right, I shall return momentarily. Just got to take a quick break to go get something that just got delivered. BRB. All right, we're back in action. Armed with a fresh can of G Fuel. Oh, it's this flavor. I say that like I didn't order it myself. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm looking to make an FPS first because that seems like a much simpler thing. So that'll also help me out if I do end up needing to program or whatever, which I assume I will need to program to, or that will benefit me in some way, learning programming for the game. Seems like a good idea in general. So this is sort of like me forcing the visualization that I was talking about earlier. It's like I'm just creating a palette in a sense, right? I think that's what they called the, you know, like that typical French guy that wears the beret and he's like painting. And he's got this, like, wooden object that has paint on it. I think that's called a palette. But that's basically what I'm after here, is, like, getting some control over that so that I know what I'm working with, what my options are. It allows you to slot those in and think, like, all right, this could work, or this would maybe not work out that well, and it's just better. It's just better, okay? Like, obviously, I could just pull from existing tiles that are on the map, but more convenient to do it right here. Albeit somewhat frustrating, considering the low repeat rate of certain tiles. Gives you very little to work with in some cases. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm never in my Twitch chat to ban those bots, unfortunately. So you guys will have to look at their message and wonder what you could do to become famous. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to grab. Is I'm sure it's somewhere. Here it is. Another thing I do try to do when I'm doing slow detail work like this is I try to go from area to area. Another strategy, because really, even though I like to create areas that look good, if it takes a long time to detail, it's agonizing sometimes. So it's like I believe in the results, but I don't 100% enjoy the work. You know what I mean? And so when I'm dealing with stuff like that, I sometimes find it a viable alternative to not doing any work at all because you don't feel like it whatsoever. A sort of alternative to that, is, for me anyway, has historically been to... it's a shame that that tile is no longer unbuildable because now that looks good there. It's fine. It's Mapcrap. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'll basically try to create not only like a a system where I'm dealing with like just one area at a time and then migrating over it later. Like, I'm not just doing that, I'm also finding some opportunity to almost like it sounds bad when you say it like this, but you're almost creating a scene just for the purpose of screenshotting it. Like, think of it like that. Like, if I had to make a scene, I wanted to take a screenshot of my map as like a promo image, right? And I've decided, all right, so I'm going to make a screenshot of this. This is going to demonstrate my ice tile, right? Like, I still want to modify this a little bit, right? I would still want to add maybe like small flecks of dirt here and there. Maybe a couple more moguls here and there. Maybe a couple more rocks. So it doesn't look like it's all swept to the side over there. And it like radiates outward a bit, you know, something like this. And where's the good one? Here it is. And some other stuff in that vein. And, you know, maybe a couple more bushes near this tree over here. Right? And sometimes this, if you stay locked into this view and you don't ever move out, it can potentially cause issues. Like, maybe I don't actually want that brush there. Like, it's okay in this case. I don't mind it there. But maybe I end up placing something in a way that actually is not conducive to the final image because I was only looking at it from one angle. But limiting your viewport for a second can be helpful in that context. And it can sort of force you to focus in on exactly what you're doing in this one area. And I do find that to be useful in some areas. Reacted to bot message and YouTube blocked that, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it takes some... you have to go from SEM draft screenshots into Photoshop to fix them, save them as a BMP, into PyTile to import them, into PyMPQ to add them back into SEM draft to place them, you know? So it is a many-step process, right? It's not a... We can certainly agree that it's not as simple as it ought to be. That much is certainly true. But that's what we got, so. You ever hear the phrase, beggars can't be choosers? I think we're definitely the beggars in this case. That's why eventually we're going to become choosers by making our own RTS. And I firmly believe we'll be able to make something pretty exciting. I don't know if anybody here listened to the Dadka I released it recently, but I talk about that concept. It's like moving away from Brood War and stuff like that. And I think it is something that's going to happen, you know, obviously. That was always the plan eventually. The plan certainly was not to stick with Brood War forever. But... also, something else that you might enjoy getting into the mindset of is sort of classifying doodads or tiles in general. Like, these aren't really doodads, they're tiles, but classify them. Think of them as like there's certain doodads that work best when they're complementing other doodads. So these are complementary tiles. These are complementary elements. Then there's doodads or tiles that work best when they're by themselves. And then there's... by themselves is kind of a misnomer. So there's doodads that work best when complementing another piece, and then there's doodads that work best when used as a centerpiece or as a significant portion of it. So like if you really look at this scene, just the stuff that I've got selected over here, we have a bunch of complementary rocky snow tiles working to complement the cliff, right? That's like the cliff is like our centerpiece. But even within the rocky snow tiles, and this is super like granular, obviously, so might be too much for some people to really consider. But even within just the rocky snow tiles, we have this tile that's clearly meant to be more noisy, visually stand out from the snow than the others. And we can complement that by building around it, just like we built all of this the rocky snow around this cliff, right? So if you can start to conceptualize things as complementary and centerpiece, or you know, complementary and important or something. Like, find a term that works for you for that. You can actually short circuit potentially a lot of issues where you're not sure why you're not satisfied with a certain image, but you just know it's not right. Stuff like that. You'll find that it can be really, really simple, actually, to change certain things. So... And certain blends just don't go together either. So there's also that you've got to watch out for. So like a good example of that was when I was over here, before I placed this tile here, I was trying to find a place for this tile right here. And so I was thinking of placing it over here, but by itself, it doesn't really work that well because it's like a lot of concentrated contrast in one small area with nothing around it, where I need something that's less, that contrasts less and can just be there. So that's not really complementary nor important in that sense. It's more like I just needed a tile that doesn't, you know, take away from the eyes, you know, draw the eyes in as much. Well, I would rather make my own, but that seems like a pipe dream in and of itself, Mauli. So what I've decided to explore at some point soon is Unreal 4, where I'll be working with... I've got so fucking sidetracked there. I was about to place Rocky Ground underneath a structure. Wake up me. But... yeah, at some point, or the reason what I'm going to be doing when I jump into Unreal is actually making an FPS game. Because it's something that I believe is, for one, a lot easier to tackle from a design standpoint than an RTS. And it's also something that I enjoy playing, generally. Like, I actually enjoy playing high-quality FPS games. It's just that, just like every other genre, high-quality things are they're very low in quantity, right? So you kind of have to play the field and take what you can get in that sense. And so that's one of those things where it's like I just have to deal with the fact that there's not that much to go around. So in this case, you know, I have a dedicated base of people who'd be interested in playing that kind of stuff, which is the people who join me for Fraud Night pretty much every week. So I know those people would be interested in it because we play Counter-Strike on Fraud Night. So I know that people would be fine playtesting my game, generally speaking. And maybe it would even draw in more people than just playing Counter-Strike because people have already bought into the idea that I know what I'm doing from a game design perspective. So they're interested in my take on it, maybe. Stuff like that. So that's a situation where obviously it would also be a free thing. Like, I'm not going to charge money for it. It's just a fucking beta. And we're trying to test it anyway. So there's no barrier of entry from a financial perspective beyond maybe having a strong enough system that can run it. But I'm hoping to also learn how to properly set up costs of things like performance and stuff as well. So there's going to be a lot of lessons, I think, from it. A lot of good things that I'll be able to come away with as far as knowledge goes. And that's going to be my first stop, and we'll see where we go after that. But. Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I'm a guy who's been acquainted with stuff like C++ for a long time now, where I've worked on it or worked with it, directly or indirectly, and I still don't really fully grasp the basics, which is why I need to take a decided push to learn this stuff, as opposed to just trying to osmosis it. Like, I wasn't really following guides. I did follow some guides, but I didn't really study it day in and day out. The same way I've tested my skills with level design, for example. because at the end of the day, I think I am more of a level designer than a programmer. Like there's classes of developers, and developers that are level designers typically avoid programming, and that's why Unreal and Unity work for these people, because they typically don't have the chops to make their own engine or to program changes to an engine, and so they just work within defaults, and that gets them somewhere like farther now than it did before, which is something to be said for those free rare, or not free rare, but like those engines that otherwise, like I always badmouth Unity because it's very non-performant and very risky. Actually, like it's not safe. But I also understand what like why people flock to it, like why people use it. It's not that I don't get it at all. It's just that I would not choose to make that decision myself because I don't view it as a fair trade-off. Whereas a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to learn programming, so here's what I do. And maybe some people just actually can't. Like I think that pretty much anybody could learn programming, including myself. It's just a matter of time and a matter of availability and all that. But given the fact that a lot of people don't have the availability to just throw around there, and that's that is a valid concern for them. And of course, that's why they use those engines. I'm using it mostly because I do think that making a new engine for an RTS, no less, would be incredibly demanding, and one thing that I definitely couldn't do myself, I don't think. Like, in theory, I could do it, but it would take so long, and it would distract from the things that I'm actually passionate about doing. Like, I'm not really passionate about code, which is why I'm a level designer. I'm passionate about making high-quality software that's interactive, that pushes people to improve as players, and super ideally as thinkers. Like, they actually have to think through a problem on a strategical level in ways that they weren't being pushed to in their other areas of their life. Like, that's what I actually want to do. I want to do that to myself, and I want to have that opportunity given to other people through my software. Like, that's what I'm passionate about. That's why I make this stuff that I do. And I don't think that like, going through and actually trying to program something like a new engine, while it probably would help me in this goal, it would be so much of a time investment away from doing things, like directly doing the things that I'm actually passionate about doing, that I don't actually believe that I would be able to... Well, I would be able to do it, but I don't want to do it. I'll put it to you that way. It's like definitely a want thing for me. And I would not be somebody who would sign up for that if given the chance. So I am going to learn programming, but it's to a point where I'm not 100% sure how useful my lessons will be. And that's another reason why I'm going to be working with Unreal, so that I have like a fallback, so that I can look at that and say, all right, I'm learning programming, I'm learning, and I'm learning Unreal, and one of these things, hopefully both of these things, are going to pay dividends in the future as far as producing content goes. So I have a feeling that the programming experience that I do gain in March when I start working on this and beyond will be valuable, and working with Unreal whenever I start that, presumably also in March, but maybe some other time, I'm not sure, will also work in that context. So I'm pretty sure that we'll be looking at some high-end progress, for lack of a better term. We'll be getting some progress made. Making some progress. There you go. English. Yeah, definitely open source everything. Like, I'm not... what I would do is I would probably charge money for a copy of the game. Like, I would charge $10 or $20 or something, if I had control over that, in theory. Like, I've thought about, like payment and pricing and stuff. And I'm not even 100% sure if I would want to sell the game for money at all. Maybe I would just leave a donations button or something. But I think I would probably charge money for a one-time purchase of the title, because I feel like that is fair. But when you own the game, you own every piece of content that I make after the fact, and you own the game in perpetuity. And I would build in some way for people to look at the game and say, well, I can guarantee that I will at least be able to play this offline, and I'll be able to play this with, like, open source. We would open source the servers as well as the game itself, so people would be able to mod it, people would be able to make their own private servers with it, and they'd be able to keep the game alive even if I couldn't afford to keep the actual game servers running. Because I'm so tired of seeing games that are basically games as a service that just get shut down at some point. So I don't want to perpetuate that really disgusting industry trend, so I wouldn't make that happen either. And obviously there's no actual cost associated with releasing server code, assuming you made it yourself, and you can actually do that legally. And I would want to make sure that my code was... Like, that would be a stipulation of wherever we get our code from, or whether we make it ourselves or we download it from gamedev.net or something, which hopefully we wouldn't do. That's a meme. I would definitely want to make sure that the game was able to be supported by people who wanted to play the game, even if I couldn't afford the server costs or something like that, you know? But in theory, the server cost shouldn't be that steep, even if it's a niche game. Or assuming it would be a niche game, because I can't imagine too many people playing it. Hardcore RTS game. Assuming it is niche, we should be able to just look at that and be like, all right, we've got a niche title on our hands. If you guys want to play this with the official servers, then you can chip in for the cost or something. I don't know. But even then, I feel scummy asking for people to bankroll that sort of thing. So I don't know. I'll have to answer that question later, I guess. But yeah, that's sort of my thought process. And yes, 2D all the way. That's another thing I'm not 100% sure about when it comes to Unreal, is whether or not the game, that engine even supports the concept of 2D, actual true 2D. Like, I thought it was all emulated 2D, but I haven't looked into it that much, so I'm ignorant in that respect. No, there is no good solution. Obviously, the logger was supposed to be the solution for that, but it ended up being too much of a hassle to start the map, make sure that all the units were invincible, make sure that they were sorted correctly in the unit index. I don't think there is a good solution. Because no matter what the solution is, you could sort it by like HP percentage and then set the HP from 100 to 1 or something, and then but even that is like a lot of asinine work to do. If you like to make sure that you didn't have to use the unit index to sort by priority, you could do that, but that would still be asinine to do in the editor. And then beyond that, you also have the problem of there was something else that was problematic with that. Just having to start the game and to get the log at all is a hassle. So until it's all tool side, there's no way to do it. What I've wanted for a long time was just being able to, rather than having to do this, you know, like doing my copy paste stuff, being able to just select the unit and then either, like, obviously right click would be in here in the context menu, but there should also be an option where you just hold right click and hit the context menu option, or hold a hotkey like Control X or something. I mean, obviously Control X isn't where, Alt C or something, and then copy the coordinates down. You know? So something like that would be great. But no such luck, obviously. Well, that's what I mean by emulated 2D, is I think it's just fake 2D, like a 3D viewport that you can move around. But the game is running in 3D. I think that's what Unreal is, but I don't actually know for sure, so won't speak on that. How do I handle what, Iquare? Were you asking about I think you were asking about base layouts? Yeah, I just say I need to get a base layout of this barracks. So alright, I'll just do new. So I do base layout barracks set. So I write my skeleton and then I do this. So that's how I do it. I do that every single time. Yeah, that's true. I guess you could just select the unit, Control C, and then Control V, but Okay, so it would only be a RAM cost or something, but not an actual performance. I don't know what memory costs, what the distinction is there. So. Right, yeah. An annihilation is currently commencing. Oh fuck, mixed play still on. Huh. Well, it doesn't look like it was really on, so that's fine. What's up, Dio? That's I like that. Oh boy, mixed play. This is a good way to enter into the stream there. Looks like the tail end of a first map between Natus Vincer and Team Vitality. That's occurring right now. You could have done that. That would have been my fault. It was yellow instead of green anyway, so I don't even know if it would have worked. Ah, Complexity. Another team that's at this event that will be playing the winner of this best of 3. Oh, what's up, Connor? How you doing, dude? I don't know if Icor's still here, but... Ah, yes. A classic. That's gym life for you, man. I'm doing pretty well, though. Well, what I was worried about mostly was just the fact that a game like any 3D game basically has a huge performance hit and a huge RAM hit just by virtue of being 3D. And optimizing that is no easy task. And I'm hoping I don't have to do any optimization on the 3D aspect if I'm making a 2D game. But I'm sure I will, because that's just how things work. I still have a lot of rocks to place. It's okay. Get some moguls in here. Complete you, actually. Where's my dot? I need my dot. There's my dot. All right, so how's progress? Progress is good. Unfortunately, we found another AI regression, but Icor said he would look into it later today, so hopefully he has something for me by the end of my stream. And there is a workaround even if, like, for some reason it takes an entire month to fix, but I don't think it will. It's pretty minor. Since we found that, and I brought it to his attention, hopefully it can be resolved soon. Otherwise, I've been mostly spending time detailing the map, adding a bunch of rocks here and there. Obviously, there's still a good section of the map that needs to be detailed as far as those rocks go. More details down on the bottom left, as well as all across the player's base in general. And I would say the Rainer base, and I guess down here. Otherwise, we should probably flesh out the details around the Rectum base, but I think the details around the Fraud base and the Charlie base are pretty much taken care of. And we sort of stretched out over here as well, but we probably still need to flesh some stuff out over there. So still some refinement that needs to go down, but in general, the decor has been pretty successful. Pretty happy with that. Map definitely looks more complete in that sense. Otherwise, I've mostly been considering what I want to do next. Since we have that AI issue, we can't really test our AI. What I was able to see was that the AI does successfully pick a containment location for its early bunkers, and it successfully picks a spot to lift its command center off and land it over there. So I guess that is something that I can test, actually, is the lift lands stuff. I can test that a bit more aggressively. So we'll do that. And then after that, we can go back to writing some more AI, I guess. I haven't imported the latest stuff yet, so... let's see here. Now, in theory, they should get a town somewhere in the next little while. Yeah, so they requested it here over here this time. He's going to wait for him to have enough money. And it looks like it may take a while to actually get to the point. Yeah, because they don't have a lot of money, unfortunately. So we won't even be able to test that. Oh, as far as like the map layout is concerned, I haven't actually made too many major changes. Or really any. Like, I'm adding more unbuildable terrain, I guess. And a couple of more path block terrain. But we always knew that was going to happen. I just hadn't really put everything together just yet. But in that vein, I did want to add a couple of things. Like, I want to actually add a meaningful distinction to why you would want to take one of these ramps versus the other. Like, obviously, there's the distinction of one of them being wider. But I think if I add a couple of rocks that make it kind of precarious or annoying to path through this area, that will be more value associated with taking one over the other, right? So... do something like this. And then, you know, we can add some more decor in that area as well. But yeah, most of the changes have been decor related. Just fleshing out the concept of the map's aesthetic. Also, for those of you who are not aware, Veek has been doing his own set of mod streams lately, so if you're ever starved for mod stream content, and you happen to be on at the same time he's doing his stuff, toss him a sub, you know, head over there and check him out. He's working on his full toilet submission. He's getting that grind on. When I start waking up a bit earlier, more regularly, I'll be able to tune in myself to a lot of his stuff. So, looking forward to having more time to do that. I actually haven't messed around with code blocks that much. I'm a guy who preferred to stick to Notepad++, but obviously that's not an IDE. That's just what you write code in. And obviously, I'm not a real coder in that sense. You know, I'm mostly just here to write AI, more or less. So, couple of trees. Oh yeah, we can throw some moguls in here too. But as far as a generic, I mean, like, it gets recommended by so many tutorials, but obviously recommendations mean pretty much nothing, because people would probably also recommend that you mod Warcraft 3 or something. So... that speaks for itself. But yeah, I haven't explored the program enough to tell you what its downfalls are. Iker, I really don't know what would be best, man. The solution is adding more functionality to the editor. That is what the solution is. That's the only solution as far as I can tell. I mean, otherwise, I guess the solution that you could do is, well, this isn't going to take a day. You could pre-place a bunch of structures owned by that player and then remove them on the first frame of the game. But in that first frame, initialize an AI script command that writes that base layout data. But again, that's not very precise and it's not very flexible. So probably not a good idea. Like anything that I can think of just needs more. Needs more. It's more functionality. Yeah, empty toilet. Yeah. You just got to get real good at mashing your buttons together, man. Time to practice button mashing. Ow. I don't know why I said ow there. I didn't even hurt myself. I just made a loud noise. Needed to be punctuated with something. I'm getting lost in my doodads again. This is a classic move. I used to over doodad a lot and spend a lot of time on decoration back in like 2015 and before then. I still probably do that in some senses, but at least I justify it with something to actually play in addition to something to look at. Whereas before it was all like, just pay attention to these environments because you can't. There's no gameplay here, so just ignore the fact that there's no gameplay here. But that was a good bit. Well, we just need something that tells the AI to ignore requests that use base layouts. Like, wait up until a certain amount of time before placing them anywhere that they can. Sort of like a wait for timeout in player combat that you added. There needs to be some sort of, like, timeout on the AI's ability to, like, before they use the default algorithm. You know what I mean? Yeah, yes, free real estate, exactly. See, DF gets it. I could put crystals everywhere if I wanted to, I suppose. $33. You. You will you me you, actually. Don't know if you knew that one. You. Do I have something dumb ticked? Okay, never mind. I've been pranked for the last time. I need to make high moguls, probably. In fact, I should prep all those anyway. Bing, 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 bong. Bing, 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 bong, bong, bong. Thanks again, DF, for this. It's pretty epic. Excellent. Oops. I should probably find some keyboard shortcut for duplicate and for merge layers. Oh well. That makes a copy. Oh, for duplicate? Yeah. Nice. Thanks. Epic. I've really improved my workflow with Photoshop lately with all these keyboard shortcuts and little tricks. Mostly thanks to you, DF, so thanks for sharing that knowledge. Stuff I didn't even know was possible. And was like constantly thinking like, wow, it would be great if this was possible. Little did I know. Yes, exactly. Me actually. Imagine writing that and it not being a you actually joke. Though I guess it was still a you actually joke. Are you still interested in reconstructing, what's it called? The beta moguls or whatever they used to be snow. I don't know how much reconstruction would actually be necessary there, but I guess it would need a new edge, which would be the most challenging thing. It's coming up with a new barrier for it. It's hard to know what is and isn't a, no, I think that's all not a tile. Hard to know what is and is not a fucking mogul's bit in this particular tile variant. It's a big problem with ice in general, though. It's fine, we'll draw our own borders. Build our own walls. Well, I used to do like mass replace or whatever, like magic wand it, but it selects a bunch of bad pixels, like pixels that I don't want them to select, rather. Especially with shitlet that's as similar in construction to this. And in theory, I could mass select and then just manually deselect the stuff that I don't want, and then Control X. But yeah, like tell me where the fucking moguls start and the high snow begins. Like what the, or the regular snow begins. What the fuck? I guess it's down here. They all generally end in the same place, so I think we're looking pretty good here. You bet correctly. If you can make a layer of normal snow like I did with the high snow, put it over the moguls and set the blending to difference. Then make the result a new layer and use the perfect black pixels as a selection. Well, I do have a layer for that, so hold on. We will experiment. So what am I doing it? I'm using, put it over moguls, set layer to difference. Oh, make the result a new layer. So you duplicate this and then merge. And you just said perfect black? Or should I be doing the other black too? I feel like doing the other black stuff might be useful here. The grays and whatnot. Yeah, I know. That's not going to help me here, though, because I'm still selecting everything. Well, it's not going to be exactly the same place, that's for sure. Oh, yeah, see, it's only accurate for this area because I already masked this out. So, that's why you said only use the perfect black? Yeah, that's not going to help me very much, is it? As a mask. I just did add the selection and it did nothing. I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait, I guess I have to select everything but the black pixels is what you're talking about. So select inverse. That doesn't help me either. So no, I'm lost. I'm not sure what you want me to do here. It's not really feasible to make a canvas that's one-to-one with the tiles that were used as a base, so the difference I don't think will actually help. I mean, I guess it would be feasible in a sense, but that would be as time-consuming as masking it all out manually. If you can come up with a way to do it faster than this, though, I would be all about that, because... Trust me, I don't want to do this. I just want the result. Oh, wait, I just realized I'm doing work I don't need to be doing right now. Yeah. And I will be right back, because I gotta pee. Alright, so since DF is messing around with that, I'm going to take a short break from tile editing. By short, I mean potentially for the rest of the stream. We'll see. I'm going to go back to writing some AI. So we'll minimize this, close that, and open this. So, what else did I want to do? Let's migrate the latest changes for AI defenders to over here. Just so that we have that active. I guess there's not really a point to separating these out. Just call it fi def use. And it's not a meme way of spelling diffuse either. Don't get your Counter-Strike into my Brood War. Or else you will pay a devious price. Alright, so at least we have this done. We eliminated some junk as well. Cool. So that's that. So I think this AI is good to go. Like, obviously we need to unfuck it with a few different things. Oh, that was supposed to be 20. That's funny. Oh yeah, that's the other thing is you can't wait build start is important because you can't have a town thing in the like in this case I have to replace wait build start SCV with just like wait I forget what the time for SCVs are. $300, yeah. Which obviously is not great for keeping things accurate, but it's okay. Yeah, you're using a different commit that doesn't have this problem. Well, I have to start imagining so that we can actually test our fucking AI, man. So, I think the implementation I just wrote should be fine, even if it's dumb. What? Oh, I think I have the wrong... Yeah, that would be why. I should probably raise the priority of the bunkers that they're supposed to be building here, since that will help them unfuck. Hi. He's not Ahmed yet, but he will be soon. Anyway, I guess this will be a good enough test of the conservative approach, though. They're keeping their money pretty low, which is nice. There's a conservative approach to... the build thread that involves them focusing on mech first. And slowing, like not expanding. Well, they do expand, but they take this base. Though, as you can see, the SCV is kind of blocked off there. Oh, I'm glad he decided to build depots instead of bunkers. What the fuck? Yeah, definitely need to raise the priority of the bunkers if he's deciding to come down here and build depots. Also worried about using max build to disable the ability for them to build depots down there. But... oh no, I think I actually did base layout some depot locations so that they would be better served for the bunkers, but... you know. Yeah, he has decided not to build his expansion, which is very dumb. Those overlords are allies to that player, and Zerg have a really stupid habit of exchanging overlords between bases. If we can disable that, we can reduce the likelihood of them getting sniped in the early game, because that happens in Hydra, for example, all the time. Hey, that's exciting. Be a nice test bed there. I thought I set... oh. It's supposed to be that. Yeah, I definitely forgot about them myself. Zeroed in on everything else that I've been working on lately. Yeah, I remember. It was related to Vorvelings subtracting supply when you morphed them. That still happens to a lesser extent if they get canceled or killed. Or not canceled. Maybe it is canceled. Something happens incorrectly with the math still. It's still a bug. But iQuare is not going to fix that until presumably after full toilet. So... it doesn't look black. To me, anyway. It looks pretty, like a very dark blue. Let me see. It doesn't look black to me at all. It looks like very dark, like metallic blue. I think it fits them pretty nicely. Oops. Yeah, your source code won't help me because odds are it's not just a regression in the code. Something is causing it to break. And I have the source code, and iQuare is going to look into it today, he said, so... But thank you for offering, Veek. It's just one of those things that if I were to downgrade from the current A's build, I would miss out on some stuff that I don't want to miss out on. So, although maybe not, actually, now that I think about that. Maybe would I actually miss out on... Yeah, I don't have access to player combat and stuff, so I can't do it. Looking for a particular snow doodad. Hey, don't do that. Get the triggers set up for this stuff. Hey, Veek, if you're still around, have you experimented at all with priorities for your bunkers? Interested in seeing if you found a way to make stuff work. Yeah, that version is like a remake. I think a fan-made one. It's pretty terrible. There is a more reasonable version for CSGO at some point. But we'll probably give that a try later on. next time. Yeah, you can take a look at the priority, like the way that I set it up in Stormborn. It does work. It just requires a higher priority than what I used in those maps to keep the bunkers fully staffed, I think. Like a higher priority for load bunkers and probably a higher priority for the guards themselves. Well, you don't have to put the bunker ID in order of creation. You have to put the bunker ID, make sure that it's unique to each bunker. So, for example, in my containment, like this is the containment script that I have here, the script that does the containing. And I actually have, basically I start, like I just increment to the next, I round up to the highest, the next 10. And so like all the bunkers in the main start at 1 and go to all the way up to 10. But there's not that many bunkers. And then each expansion that I hard code the base layouts for, I set the bunker value to like starting at 10, and then the next one starts at 20. And then for the containments, I started at like 50, and then for one, and then the second option was, or yeah, I started at 40, and then next one was 50, and then after that, next one was, well, it looks like I skipped 70 at some point, or skipped 60, but there's 70 and there's 80 down here. Oh yeah, I started at 30. So yeah, like you can just make it whatever number you want as long as it's a unique number, similar to set ID for towns. So it doesn't have to be in that order. I'm pretty sure this is how it works because I've been doing that for a long time and I haven't noticed issues. Check in with our Counter-Strike tournament that's happening right now. Another 10-5 start for Natus Vencer. Won the first map. Pretty epic. Epic retake, by the way. Oh, man. This is hilarious, to be honest. I still can't believe they changed the game's economy recently, Counter-Strike. You could just buy Kriegs and rifles and stuff after the second round. Just, why not? Start buying everything, man. Robo-mech themed Protoss faction. Soldier Gun, Hierophant, Reaver, Warp Relay, Scout Carrier. Well, this is a couple months ago now, Veek, but they made it so that there's each team starts out at a single loss bonus for the first map or the first round, so you actually get a second round loss bonus as if you lost 2 rounds in a row when whoever loses the first round. Valve basically wants less pistols and those type of buys and more gun rounds, but that's not really that great most of the time. Well, the Krieg a while ago was $27.50. It was $50 more than the AK, and yet it was better than literally every other rifle in the game. Better than the AUG, better than the M4s. Won duels against Ops a lot. And all they did to nerf it was increase the price back to $3,000, which is what it was originally. That's all they've done. That's literally everything. So it's just absurd what you can do now with that gun alone. Yeah. Krieg is SG 553 or whatever. As far as the M249, they are still trying to see if their rework of the Negev is going to get anywhere. Well, no, that gun, like, the thing is, the SG was always overpowered. It was overpowered since the game came out. I don't think it ever received any updates. Whatever the last balance change to it before nerfing its price, or reducing its price to $27.50, it was broken, but nobody tried it. The same is true for, like, dualies, all these pistols. These pistols are actually busted if you know how to use them. They're so broken, and they had to get nerfed so many different times, like the CZ and the Tech 9 and the 5.7. Like, these were a series of broken-ass pistols, and people were not... They didn't know how busted they were because they were busy using the one that was already broken. Like, the CZ was the most busted pistol for a while, then they added a delay to pulling it out. That kind of nerfed it enough so that people would... as well as, like, a nerf to its max magazine size or something, its reserve ammo. So those were pretty decent punishes. But it's still a pretty fucking strong weapon for $500. And the idea is that you buy that in head armor and some nades, and you kill somebody in close quarters, because that's how the gun works best, and then you take their gun, and suddenly you've upgraded. So it's not really the same thing as just spending $500 to get a kill. You're also getting a kill and their fucking rifle. So it's super broken, to be honest. Like, it's super powerful. But then the 5.7 on top of that is a busted pistol. And the Tech 9 on top of the CZ was a busted pistol. So when the CZ got nerfed, people moved over to the Tech 9 and the 5.7. And these pistols are fucking broken too. So it's like, what the fuck? Zico, yeah. A Deagles at least require a bit of mechanical skill to actually get the shots off, right? That much is for sure. Meanwhile, like, if you one-deeg somebody, like, chances are they had opportunities to outplay you, and chances are you outplayed them. You know what I mean? So, AUG was nerfed a little while ago, before the SG was nerfed. AUG meta used to be a thing, and it was also disgusting. It was just terrible. The thing is, like, it turns the whole game into, like, a creep fest, basically, a camp fest. When those script rifles dominated gameplay. Anyway, Icor was asking a Brood War related question. Clarions would be a pretty good fit. I would say, like, if you wanted to make a robo-centered AI personality, I would have them, like, drop Reavers and probably build a lot of photon cannons as well. And maybe make some, like, outposts every now and then, you know? Right, yeah, exactly, Zomana. I mean, that's the thing, is, like, there's it's the same sort of deal as, for example, if you look at the, what's the term? That the cuck gun. We call it the cuck all the time on Friday night. I don't know where we started calling it this, but it's pretty funny to me. But it's the auto snipers. Like, these guns are low skill, high reward guns. And, you know, the reason why they're not used in competitive, generally speaking, is because, for one, they're prohibitively expensive. And for another, even if you do have the money to get them, it's actually very difficult to like, utility can neutralize them, but you have to know that the gun is in play. And so it's the same kind of deal with the SG and the AUG, but they were much more accessible, and they still are pretty accessible in terms of their price point compared to the other guns. So that, plus the fact that people aren't used to using different strategies and adapting, like Counter-Strike, especially if you compare it to MOBAs and stuff, Counter-Strike is not a game that has a lot of adaptation associated with it, you know what I mean? So... Right, yeah. That's another concern, is that, like, you have to, it has to be something that you support your entire team with, pretty much. Yeah, AUG was scoped fire rate and recoil in general, I think, but maybe it was just scoped recoil, I'm not sure. But yeah, there was also the price. They reverted the price from whatever, I think it was 3,000. That went up to 3,300, and then the SG went from 2,750 to. Oh no, I think it was the price of the rifle went from 31. The AUG went from 3,150 back to 3,300, which is actually not that much money, obviously. Well, what they need to do is they need to make it a situational and valid replacement for, or alternative, where it is situationally better. But the thing is, the AUG now has the nerf fire rate, so it's better for holding angles and better for, like, it's a slower movement speed as well. So, like, there's attributes of the AUG that make it an actual gun, like make it a useful, like, you can see where you would use it instead of, like, there's an argument to be made for using it instead of the other rifles. There's no such thing for the SG. The SG dominates stats-wise, is so much better than the CT rifles and than the AK. Like, it's just better. It's just a better gun. And so that's the problem, is it's just a better gun. So it's not interesting gameplay. It's like if there's a better unit that you build in StarCraft, instead of it being a situationally better unit, you know? It's a very similar design philosophy. Well, the recoil pattern is different, which is what contributed to it contributed to its skill curve and why people didn't pick it up for a long time, because it was different. It required you to learn something different. There's a great video we can watch together, actually, that I don't mind shouting out, believe it or not. Hold on. What is it? There's PNP Krieg. We'll just search this. Maybe it'll come up. So this is pro play, by the way. Just to give you an idea of what this weapon was really like. See, this is retarded.
Thank God that's over. What?
And yes, in the same patch, they also buffed the FAMAS and Galil. So that was funny. Yeah, he accidentally... Yeah, and yes, it's a one-hit KO, even if you have head armor. Yeah, great frag movie. Great. Listen, the thing is, that would be so... It doesn't matter that no nades were used in this example or blah, blah, blah. That is so much more impressive if they managed to pull off those plays with the AK or the M4 or the M4A1S. Like, it's so much more impressive mechanically when you don't have the scope helping you, when you don't have so many other elements associated with it. And it's not like again, the Krieg or the AUG could be useful alternatives for those types of engagements where you're holding angles or you're deep in a long range gunfight. But there should be some results that of that playstyle of the gun being used in those situations that allows you to say, hey, maybe I should, I have a weakness here. Maybe there's something that the opponent can take advantage of. You know what I mean? Like, it's just... yes, it's also faster. You move faster with the SG than you do with the AUG. It's only slightly less movement speed than the AK. Better scope precision? Epic, yeah. I didn't even know about that one. Even better. That's pretty epic. Let's see if Navi destroyed Vitality yet. I think they did. Oh, we're at a title screen, so yeah, I would say so. I still can't believe Complexity. This it's an NA team, quote unquote, but it has 2 NA players. The rest are European. 2 Danes, 2 NAs, and 1 guy from I want to say Bulgaria, but it's probably incorrect. I forget the guy's nationality. Complexity is pretty fucking psychotic. They 2-0'd Astralis, 2-0'd Vitality. Will they 2-0 Navi? Who knows? Time to find out. Alright, close this shit out. I don't have too much time left, so let's make this good. We'll get the base layout started for this player. I'll just I'll create the base layout now, and then I'll, shall we say, I'll just copy and paste it over to the other map. Yeah, exactly, Alexander. Right, like my the Boston Bruins are a hockey team, and they've got like a lot of Europeans. So similar kind of situation. Well, Deus Ex is later this week, but for RTS content, I don't know. Really, the Let's Play slowed down so much just because I don't have time. But after Deus Ex, I'm going to be going back to at least one RTS. I don't know which yet. Maybe some custom campaigns for Brood War as well. Might be in the cards. Don't have any complaints there if that ends up happening. Seems like a disaster, man. I saw you writing about it in Veek's chat earlier today. It does not look any good, man. Unless it's changed significantly since last time I saw it. For defense calls for what? Build or use? Use for everything, build for everything too, I'm pretty sure. If you're talking about over here, this is going to be a ramp, so I'm not putting it there. I guess I could fit it there. There's going to be a ramp over here as well, which is why there's a bunker over here. Right, but is there merit to the actual game, or...? I think it was trying to emulate existing and bad RTS games, from what I recall. Add some more rocky ground over there at some point. Yeah, that's a classic. It's Warcraft 3. The exact same thing happens in Warcraft 3. Highly doubt he'll ever finish building all of his depots. I can cut some of these zones out. This one is a geyser, right? Yeah. Throw a couple factories over here then. What an annoying wall that'll be for anybody trying to get at that bunker. Epic. That's, we'll just say that's not the best start they could have. Best first impression they could make. There are actually a few, I mean, they're not going to be good, but there's still a few projects out there like Ascension of Duran and Stuff that has some merit in theory to it in terms of like reception, where I feel like it'll be interesting to see where that goes. So we'll see what happens, but for sure at some point I'll be checking it out. Pranked. It is a little exhausting, yeah. Yes, reception. No, these people are like, wow, it's so cool. One project I think I already have it in my not playing folder. Where is it? Let's see. Moment of truth here. I fucking hope it's in here. Yes, thank God. Empire Wars, man. What a campaign Empire Wars is. Well, it opens up with a micro mission. Who would have guessed? Oh, it may seem inoffensive at first, despite its microtisms, but when you get to the end stage maps, man. Oh, man. Imagine trying to slog through this shit. Oh, wowee. Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Wow. And check this out, ready? Difficult. Zerg campaign difficult. Protoss campaign difficult. Terran campaign difficult. Yikes! Ah, some spawns. Oh. And this player just cheats and gets permanent vision of you, I guess. That's cool. Yeah. Run far away from that, man. So yeah, I'm not playing that one. That would destroy me. Both in terms of me dying, in terms of its gameplay, and me just dying in real life. What a mess. Yeah, Connor knows. Connor has played it, apparently. He knows it's a disaster. An affront to mankind. Emphasis on man. See you later, Connor. Thanks for hanging. Don't be sad. Just be happy that soon you'll have a toilet to play. I mean, a full toilet submission to play. Alright, so we did base layouts for Rainer anyway. I feel like this is a decent enough starting situation. Starting point. I do need to get the ramps in at some point, but those depend on DF himself. Thankfully, he's a man who can be depended upon. Oh no, this is a completely different map. This is an ice map, dude. This is my full toilet submission. Basically, Mapcrap every now and then has a large-scale, long-running contest. We call this contest Full Toilet. Because if you're going to be spending 2 weeks to a month on a map, it better be enough to fill my toilet. You know what I mean? So... for last year, I did a mission in a campaign that I was going to make. It had a bunch of very poorly ported StarCraft 2 assets that were ported by some Koreans that I had to manually fix a lot of issues with. That was hilarious. And then, other than that, it was a pretty large scale map, and I thought it was pretty cool. We had like a lot of custom tiles that I made for it as well to make space platform more applicable here. More viable for a real map. In this case, I'm making this map, which is not actually meant to be a campaign mission this time around, but has made me make a lot of custom tiles for it. Like the outpost blending with snow, for example, doesn't happen by default. I had to make that blend. It's still a little rough around the edges here with the shading, so at some point I'm going to go in and fix that up, but it's serviceable for Mapcrap, obviously. I had already made dirt blending cliffs, which normally these blend only with snow. I'd already made that at some point, but in this particular context, I didn't mind reusing it for this. And otherwise, I've made a bunch of small blends here and there. DF is going to finish the coastal snow at some point before the end of the month, and I'm going to implement it here to make some blends with it so that we've got snow that blends with the water. And then I'll make a blend for this bridge as well, and we'll be in business for a nice little like frosty river type thing. So yeah, the custom tiles are in full effect, in full swing. I'm also making I ported all of these cliff doodads for the high cliff, whereas previously I didn't have doodads for them. I just had the cliff faces themselves. Hopefully we have reverse ramps for outpost and for natural dirt cliff, which is like this stuff, or natural cliff in general. By the end of the month as well. Those also rely on DF, but he already made this pretty cool looking reverse ramp. So that's pretty nice. He used 3D modeling to make that stuff. So it's pretty accurate as far as the perspective goes, which is nice. At some point he's going to replace this junk heap that I made a while ago, and also make one for Outpost. So yeah, custom tiles are improving. It's a nice way to like check my skills, like refine my skills in writing AI and making compelling levels, and also pushing forward the number of assets we have to use given a certain map. Like the first Mapcrap of this season I didn't finish, but I made a lot of tiles for Ashworld, which made it a more functional tile set, obviously. That's basically true for every single Mapcrap that I've done. Like my most recent one, I ported installation into Badlands, for example. So. Well, the more that you, like, one of the things that I've noticed, Vic, is, like, for example, I actually started out this map being smaller and then eventually expanded it outward. That was when I was certain that I would need that extra space and that I could make use of it, you know? So there's a point in time where you go back, if you go back long enough to those streams and you find, like, parts where I was just looking around trying to make some stuff, like the first Mapcrap stream, I think, is when I made the map and also when I eventually expanded it. as you get more comfortable with working with a certain map size, or just understanding like what a map size will translate to in terms of gameplay and what it'll allow you to make in terms of functional pathways that reinforce good gameplay and allow for player skill expression and decision making to be used properly, you'll find situations where it makes sense to do a certain thing, or if it makes no sense to do a certain thing, right? So it's just about getting more comfortable with the environment, I think, and the more you work with it, the better that will be, the more well acquainted you will be. So in that sense, I think it's just a matter of time. I would probably use scouts for them for now. Like, the thing is, eventually they just need a brand new tech tree. But for now, I think it's fine to have them use scouts and Zealot Dragoon. Maybe add a stalker unit or something. I don't know. Warp relays would definitely be neat to see in action, because then they could deceive you in that sense by making it seem like their army is smaller than it actually is, and then warp in some more units right then and there, right? So it could be neat. Connor player, epic. Right, yeah. So basically, AI can be a hard barrier between each other, but it should be something that evolves over time, and that can be like a decision-making tree for the AI. Like, do I want to do an expansion where I use myself as a shield for my ally? Or do I want to take a certain area knowing that I'm putting myself between two enemies, in your case? Like, you have the barrier of P8, I think you said. That player is now a barrier between the one player and another player, and both of those are enemies of P8, right? So P5 and P1 in this case, I guess. So in that sense, that should be like a decision-making thing that the AI does, not a situation where the AI starts out in that way, right? And so that's where I think you're probably finding some issues, is it's always going to be like this, and there's no variance there, and there's no decision-making that the AI can do there. It's just how the map is set up. And that's where you can critique your map design and figure out like what needs to be changed there. Right. Well, you can just make it so that sometimes the AI will take a more conservative approach where they'll try to expand. Like, you can have that work in based on a build order. Like, the longer you spend on a single map, the more you're going to realize like it's actually there's potential for you to improve the map based on the certain things, like making it so that there's a varied build order somewhere in there. And that's something that most people don't mess around with. They make their AI fairly static in that sense. Like, maybe they randomly select expansions, and obviously there's like free-for-all stuff that will add a layer of that sort of behavior in there, where you'll be like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen here because of X, Y, and Z. There's like moving parts, so it's not entirely static. But there's also a strong element of determinism that goes into the AI's scripts, right? Like a linear element of the way that the map will play out, more or less. So Well, you're not going to miss much, man. I am closing shop. So I got to get ready for work. I got work in about 50 minutes. So, what is that? So, thank you everybody who tuned in today and hung out. Even if you're not here right this second to receive my thanks, I hope you, at some point, figure out that I said thanks. Thanks. We made some pretty good progress on level design today, which is something I'm definitely happy about. And we can... hold our heads up high. As a result of that. Feeling pretty good. Okay, cool. And we made some progress in the AI as well. So, not all visuals today, but a good amount. I'll be back tomorrow with another one of these, and remember, Tuesday is the day of Deus Ex starting, so I will see you guys that afternoon for that. Otherwise, see you tomorrow.